such a difficult weekend. I was trying to distract myself by listening to jazz music and reading books, but then I thought I should say something on the situation. I was wondering whether I should create a clip on this topic because I'm not American myself, I don't live on the territory, but I'm aware that the majority of my viewership is comprised of women, and most of these women come from America or Canada, from the northern part of America. So because of you, I want to be by your side during this difficult time and to give you an astrological and spiritual interpretation of what you see exploding at the moment in the world of politics and in the media regarding the decision that was taken on Friday. So for those of you that might not be aware, on the 24th of June, the Supreme Court of America, this massive traditional institution that is supposed to dish out justice, has decided to overturn the results of the Roe versus Wade case and thereby effectively terminating American women's rights to get a legal and safe abortion on the territory. What followed is that a number of clinics, especially in the southern part of the US, decided to completely stop all the scheduled abortions that they had, and the future is completely uncertain at the moment. If you get into a situation where you might need some sort of medical assistance for an unplanned pregnancy, what's going to happen with you? What's going to happen with the baby? What's going to happen with your health? How is your life going to be affected by this? It's interesting, right? Because the decision that was taken by the Supreme Court on June the 24th was actually taken on the day of Freya, the goddess of love and war. And this northern goddess is actually considered to be the counterpart of the Greek and Roman goddess Venus. It feels medieval. It feels like such a step backwards for the rights and liberties that were gained in the last 30 years. And all the situation reminds us all of this particular book written by Margaret Atwood. I mean, imagine if the only thing we can control in this world about ourselves are our thoughts, our emotions, and our bodies. Imagine what happens when somebody takes away from you the right to truly control your body, to truly decide this is what I want to see happen to it or not. You might be sitting at home thinking, why does this concern me? I'm not American. But it does concern you because America's prime and potentially most valuable export has been democracy. And we are seeing at the moment how democracy is being made to look like a cartoon version of what it once was. So whatever we see happening on the global scale in America, usually we tend to take as an example for any other country in the world due to the power and reach of America. So if this is what is happening at the moment in their society, who says that your rights and liberties won't be infringed tomorrow because your government decides to copy some of these awful things that happen in America, much like we've copied a number of their economic practices, the ways in which they institute laws and regulations regarding democratic principles. This is important, this matters, this concerns us, and yes, we can actually do something about it. In this clip, I want to talk to you about America's Pluto return and what it means for the collective and the coming months, what is coming up next based on this atmosphere of fear and uncertainty and deep anger. We will also talk about the return of the divine feminine, Aphrodite, Venus energy, and how important it is at the moment to protect divine feminine energy, both in our hearts and in the collective, by safeguarding other women and by banding together in groups with other significant women. Before we jump into the analysis of America's Pluto return, and before I talk to you about what Pluto at its final degrees is actually all about in terms of collective transformation, I do want to make it very clear so that there is no confusion. I myself am pro-choice, and this video will have this bias. If you are pro-life, first of all, I don't know what you're doing on my channel. Please unsubscribe now. Second of all, if you comment anything down below that affects the safety of the space that I'm creating here for my crew and for those people who feel that they are somehow suffering through an injustice based on this awful decision that was taken, then I want you to just walk away. Walk away. I will block and delete any comments that jeopardize the safe space that I'm trying to create here for people to discuss the astrological and spiritual meaning of this Supreme Court decision. Okay, great. So now that that is out of the way, this is the chart of the Declaration of Independence that was signed on the 2nd of August, 1776. And you can see very clearly there Pluto, the house, the planet, and also the degree at which it found itself. Now, if we take this chart and we compare it to the chart of the decision that was taken by the Supreme Court on the 24th of June, 2022, what do you see? The sign that Pluto is in, the house, and the degree. Significant. They're very similar, right? So we see very clearly here that America at the moment is undergoing its Pluto return. And Pluto return is a time when, if you are not standing in the integrity of those very things that have founded your nation, then you will have to destroy everything that was created at the time when Pluto was first in that specific degree. You have to just destroy it all to the ground, all to the bare bones, to the cellular matter, in order to rebuild it right back up. This is why so many of the amendments of the rights, of the liberties that were initially created by the founding fathers in that important declaration are now being tested. So a Pluto return is basically a massive societal transformation. It holds you accountable to that initial value that you build something upon. So the entirety of the American society and civil society, their civil rights and liberties, were inspired by the Declaration of Independence. And if those values are not standing forth, if they're not protected, and if they're not being implemented by each individual in that society, then they will crumble. And we are seeing at the moment this massive social crumbling of these very rights and liberties that have founded the nation. Why am I talking here about foundation? Well, because Capricorn represents the skeleton of the nation. It represents the institutions that were created by American folk to uphold the rights and values inscribed initially in the Declaration of Independence. One of such institutions is the Supreme Court. The other institution is the police. We've been seeing recently in countless examples of police brutality and the inherent racism of the police in America. We've been seeing how these institutions that are meant to protect all are actually serving just a few, and they are protecting a select number of privileged people that have the right skin color, that have the right cultural background, and most importantly, that actually have the paycheck to defend themselves, to actually say, I am worthy of protection, I am worthy of being considered a citizen. When all of this is massive BS, everyone should be worthy of being considered a citizen, no matter what race you are, no matter how much money you have in the bank. The traditional declaration is supposed to protect all people that are born on that territory, but we are seeing how this many has actually become the few, the 1%, the select, the elite, the protected. So this is one aspect that Pluto in Capricorn is bringing up to the collective. It's helping us become aware of this inherent bias and injustice so that we can do something about it and change it. We are not supposed right now to fall into defeatism. We are not supposed to think, oh my God, this is just my struggle, I'm going to have to take all the responsibility upon my shoulders. That is a very faulty working Capricornian stoicism. What we are meant to do is to come together as groups, because there is power in numbers, there is power and strength in us coming together as a collective. However, Saturn is still in Aquarius, and it is creating this fear, this massive problem of feeling as if the person next to me is against me, or it's just me against the world rather than me as part of the world, supported by all these other individuals that are having the same rights and liberties infringed upon them at the moment. One example of such division is men thinking that this decision will not concern them, which is a very big problem, because you could be thinking, well, this is a woman's issue, what does it matter to me? Well, think about this kind of thinking the next time when a woman refuses to have sex with you because it is dangerous, because it is scary for her to accidentally get pregnant and not be able to have a decision as to what she would like to do with her body, and with genuinely investing time, energy, effort, and love into caring for your baby. Another problem is the one that I mentioned at the beginning, this divide between countries and nations. We think that what happens in one country doesn't really affect us because we are not members of that specific country, but it does affect us. It affects world politics. It affects the ripple consequences of these situations. For example, at the moment, I assume that a number of American women are going to have to drive across the border to Canada to get legal and safe abortions. This is going to change, and it will put a lot of pressure on the Canadian medical system. So think about how whatever happens in one country has a ripple effect on what happens in the next neighboring country. Much like, for example, the war between Russia and Ukraine is affecting all of the regions around Ukraine, such as Poland, such as Hungary, such as Romania. We are all affected by this war, and we're all struggling to adapt to the influx of refugees and to basically trying to help these people build back their lives in the wake of such horror and terror. We are seeing at the moment that what happens in one territory has a ripple effect on another territory. We are seeing at the moment that what happens to one gender will certainly affect the way in which we treat the other gender. We are seeing as well that we cannot just consider ourselves separate from one another. Not only that, but as all of these political and social events are happening, nature is also raging. We are seeing the problems of the global climate warming up. We are seeing how Mother Earth is really throwing these massive tantrums, I would call them, because she's just basically had enough of being abused and of not being cared for properly. What happens in the natural environment affects us. What happens to one gender affects the other one. What happens to one nation affects the neighboring nation as well. It's all interconnected. We have to stop deceiving ourselves into thinking that we are not connected. And this principle of coagula, of binding things together, is the one represented by the divine feminine. The divine feminine that has been so discarded and put to the side for so many years due to this massive power and influence that Capricornian energy has amassed since Pluto entered Capricorn in 2008, following the Lehman Brothers disaster and the complete reconfiguration of the economic landscape. America is the founding place of democracy, and we are seeing at the moment what is happening in the world with democratic liberties. They are all being skewed, they're being pulled back. People's relationship with traditional institutions that are meant to protect us is being increasingly eroded to the point, and this is the significant and hopeful point, where we will finally understand that we own the power as individuals, and that there will be strength in numbers as we come together. So all of this negativity that we're seeing being gathered in the collective in many different parts of the world, not just in America, will actually lead towards a really important volcanic eruption of dissent and rebellion that will be brought on with the age of Pluto in Aquarius. But up until then, guys, it will get a little bit darker before it gets lighter again. So there is a stoic game that we need to play. There is a game of strength that we need to show in the coming months. numerologically, if you have a look at what has happened in 2022, there is something playing out there in a divine kind of numerological way. So we know that Russia invaded Ukraine on the 24th of February. We also know that Roe versus Wade was overturned in America on the 24th of June. Is that a coincidence? I don't think so. Both of these two dates mark water seasons. So Russia invaded Ukraine during Pisces season, and Roe versus Wade was overturned during Cancer season. Now, if we are to kind of look forwards in time, I would guess that something significant and equally enraging is going to happen. I don't know exactly where, in which part of the world, but it might happen on the 24th of October in Scorpio season to kind of match this divine synchronicity. If we add up 2 plus 4, the number of the day, we get 6. What is the pattern that we're seeing here? 666. Now, a lot of you could freak out and say, oh my God, this is the number of the beast, as it was called in the Bible. This is the devil energy. Yes, we live in deeply demonic times because Pluto is in Capricorn, the sign that is represented in the major arcana by the devil's card, number 15, which if you add up 1 plus 5 adds up to 6. However, you guys need to keep in mind that before the church, and especially the Christian church, came through to take this number and make it the sign of the beast, the sign of body, lust, pleasure, material aspects, number 6 was worshipped as the number of Venus, the Greco-Roman goddess Venus Aphrodite, the goddess of love, pleasure, beauty, and external beauty especially. So whatever was considered part of the aspect of the divine feminine, once Christianity came through and destroyed all of that beautiful cultural heritage of the ancient Greco-Roman world, was morphed. It was changed into something other than what it signified. So if number 6 was the number of the divine goddess, now number 6 is continued to be the number of materialism and physical aspects that have nothing to do with spirituality. It is a number that is attributed to beasts, to the demons, to Satan. So where does the truth lie? In which part of this interpretation do you want to situate yourself? I would say that it's important right now to go back to the roots and reclaim number 6 and reclaim the divine feminine that has been so brutalized by the current transit of Pluto in Capricorn. We've been having this transit of Pluto in Capricorn since 2008, and the shadow aspect of Capricorn is Cancer. Cancer is divine feminine energy represented by the moon. Cancer rules over women's domestic issues, our idea of home, everything that we find nurturing, safe, comforting. It rules over emotional wealth and not necessarily material wealth. It rules over the private world, the world where a lot of beautiful things happen behind closed doors, such as people that make love, such as births that are created into the world, such as the world that is represented by everything we hold nearest and dearest, related to the past, related to our ancestors, to our roots and our cultural sensibilities, our cultural reservoir of all the stories that we tell ourselves to survive, to find strength and meaning in life. This is what Cancer represents. And since 2008, Pluto has been sitting opposite from Cancerian energy, tearing it into pieces and creating it one more time. There has been a strong death and rebirth process associated with everything that has to do with mothering, childcare, homes, and homing. We see the number of homeless people that are in the world at the moment. We see how difficult it is to actually bring a child into the world and to be able to make sure that the baby is safe, make sure that you have enough money to pay for childcare, which is increasingly costly, for sending your child to school, which is increasingly dominated by violence and random terror attacks. So all of these aspects, everything that has to do with us feeling safe in the world, us feeling nurtured and mothered, has been distorted. The link between ourselves and Mother Earth, Gaia, has been increasingly torn apart by greed, by corporate investment, wanting to take away people's resources, money, bodies, everything that they could have in order to feed a specific greedy cause. So that is the lower vibrational energy of Capricorn. I will stop at nothing to get what I want. And Capricorn also represents the patriarchy. It represents institutions. It represents everything that has to do with what we consider the backbone of society. We've seen since 2008 the gradual dismantling of our faith and trust into these institutions. Nobody believes that the government can save them. Nobody believes that the government can bail you out if you lose your business due to things such as the pandemic that we have just slowly gotten out of. Nobody believes that the police can protect you. We see right now how skewed police protection is and how it is geared only those that are white or rich, for example. Nobody believes at the moment that politicians truly serve and defend your values. They only self-serve themselves. What is happening in the world at the moment is this increasing corrosion of the trust that us as masses of individuals, as the collective, have been putting into the hands of these traditional institutions. The patriarchy does not protect you. The patriarchy does not want what is good for you. The institutions that we have created in society are breaking down. They are faulty. They are based on beliefs and values that we no longer support. Everything that is happening, all of these injustices, all of these moments where you just go like, what? Oh my God, I can't believe it. They did it again. Like the betrayal, the disappointment. They are all part of this process of Pluto in Capricorn dredging out the worst, showing us this is reality. This is what you thought was protecting you. It's not. It's a bad dream. What are you going to do about it? And the only solution that we have to this is to stop feeding them power, to stop believing in these institutions. And then you might say, well, what do we have against that? We have ourselves. We increasingly need to come together. We need to heal the separations that have been happening in society with this obsession with work, obsession with gathering money, obsession with protecting our material goods, thinking that being together is unsafe, which is one of the worst consequences of the pandemic. The fact that it instilled this fear between coming together with other people, talking to other people, gathering together in public places. Now, with Jupiter's transit in Aries, we all have to find the courage to come back together again. Because Saturn is still in Aquarius until January 2023, we still have this fear. There's still this atmosphere of, oh my God, what are we gonna do? Well, this has happened. Well, I can't rely on my friends. I can't come together with a group of people. There are still some arguments, some limits, some obstacles towards people generally coming together to fight for a good cause. But nonetheless, they come together, and that's exactly what they are doing. And we are seeing right now with the brave people of Ukraine what amazing results they are getting by not giving up, by coming together. And even though they're in a situation which is very similar to the David and Goliath myth, if we take into account Russia's nuclear weaponry, and just the sheer number of their military and the sheer number of their weapons and armament, nonetheless, they are strong, they are resilient, and Ukrainian people can actually win this war if they are given the proper support from the EU. Much like in the past, 13 American colonies, when the Declaration of Independence was signed, were trying to break away from this monolith that was the Great British Empire, and they succeeded, but they only managed to succeed with the help of another force, France. America's victory inspired the brave French people to overthrow their emperor and actually create the Republic of France. So what will happen in the coming months? Well, as I said a bit earlier, there will be something important, something that will again bring a lot of rage and fear into the collective on the 24th of October, plus and minus a week. I do feel that Scorpio season is going to throw us another big blow, and this might be the straw that breaks the camel's back, because as you guys know, Scorpionic energy is make it or break it. It's quite intense, and a lot of revolutions actually started in the month of November, or a lot of insurgencies happened, as well as in the month of March. And March 2023 is going to be massive in terms of uprising, revolts, insurgent groups actually striving to take back the power. It will be the beginning of a large number of domino-like collectives coming together to just say, that's it, enough, I had this has to end. We're just gonna have to change these institutions, because if not, I think we're all just gonna die. So there will be this massive wake-up call. It's almost like the judgment card in the tarot, right? The annunciating angel that comes back to bring all the bodies back up to life again. We've all been collectively incredibly stoic. We had to be so controlled, so disciplined. A lot of us have been overworking themselves and walking through the collective like we were zombies, especially since the pandemic happened, especially with all the wars and the terrorist attacks and all the problems with the food banks and lack of appropriate nourishment. All of these things are taking a toll. And why are these happening? Well, because they have to take a toll. They're all building towards this pressure cooker, which will actually pop in March next year. Much like back in the days, if we have a look again at the chart of the Declaration of Independence, in order for these new ideals to come forth, in order for this new free world to be created, which America symbolized in the minds of the 13 initial colonies, this dream that they had, right? In order for that dream to come through, a lot of other things had to fall apart, and the power of the Great British Empire had to be snapped back onto it. So this is what is going to happen. What is happening at the moment in Ukraine, and the victory that the Ukrainian people will ultimately will have ripple consequences for what will happen to the countries in the European Union, and the ways in which America is actually going to reconstruct itself, the new foundation that they will have to build for the upcoming generations to truly feel like they are citizens, like they can enjoy the rights and the liberties that were initially created in the Declaration of Independence. Because recently, what has been happening in America, we've all been seeing, we've all been collectively observing the death of these liberties, the death of these ideals, the death of this beautiful dream that they had initially, and that they fought tooth, nail, and claw to defend and to protect, to bring into being. Manifestations sometimes take a lot of force and willpower to come into being. It's not just like I think of something and that's it. You have a dream and then you do everything you can to bring it into reality, to bring it into existence. This is bigger than just pro-life and pro-choice. Astrologically, we are going through the basic change of the fabric of the social world. We are also going from a period of deep discipline, stoicism, and control. We are going towards one of more illumination, of higher-minded ideals, where we will actually heal the rifts that have been created amongst groups in society. The groups will gain their power. Pluto in Aquarius guarantees it. How that will happen, that remains to be seen. We will see the ways in which this energy is actually going to come forth. My understanding as an astrologer is that it will be a lot of friction. It won't be necessarily as easy as we would like it to think. I think it's significant that what we see happen at the moment with the Supreme Court happened in Cancer season, because the movements of the crab, which represents it, this is the animal spirit of Cancerians. The crab actually represents that in order for progress to happen, it cannot be linear. Sometimes we take one step forward, then 2 steps backwards, then 2 steps forward, then 1 step backwards. And this is exactly the kind of friction that is usually involved in processes of change. It is also the kind of friction that is involved in processes of giving birth. If you think about the act of copulation and the energy between two bodies that are rubbing against each other that lead to a culmination. This is the energy of how nature creates. This is the energy of how we, as part of nature, create. It involves tension, friction, phenomenal desire, and that it ultimately leads to an eruption. It leads to some sort of conclusion, to a moment of relief. And this is what we're building up towards at the moment. We are in the friction part. This is why there is so much anger. This is why everybody's tense, everybody is wired, because we're in the friction movement of that change. And March 2023 is going to be the culmination. It's going to be that orgasm point. It's going to be the moment of unleashing the creation into the collective. Up until then, we are actually gearing up for some really interesting months. Jupiter in Aries, thank God that we have this beautiful energy, is giving us courage. The courage to resist, the courage to come together, the courage to heal. However, Jupiter in Aries is favoring at the moment masculinity. The divine masculine is very strong at the moment, and it is awakening inside the hearts of all of us. So even if you're a woman, you still have your divine masculine part strongly activated, because we need to defend. We need to defend this dream, this new world. We know the injustices, we know the squalor, we know the poverty, we know the pain, we know how horrifyingly the divine feminine has been abused in the last decade. Now we have to find the strength, inner courage and resilience to defend her, to uphold her, so that we can finally balance out the divine masculine and the divine feminine here on earth, and we can somehow heal the relationships that have been broken down by so much greed, corruption, and just cruelty between men and women. We see this as well in the pick a card readings I create here on my channel. The messages that are coming through, the ways in which men and women tend to have these episodic, short-lived relationships where nobody wants to protect and defend the other one. That is because there have been these massive distortions in the divine feminine and in the divine masculine. But don't worry, my loves. The whole point of me creating this clip is to give you some sort of solace. Yes, we are in this friction state. Yes, there will be that massive eruption that will happen socially in March next year, so prepare yourself mentally for that tension. But eventually we are going to be able to build. We are coming together in groups at the moment. We're forming groups left and right. This new generation is really coming into its power. Pluto and Scorpios are doing their best to inspire the new generation. Pluto and Sagittarius are coming into their power at the moment, and our babies, Pluto and Capricorn, are growing through this really tough and rough environment. But finally, Pluto is going to leave their sign next year, and they will be allowed to grow at a much slower, more harmonious pace than everything that they had to endure in the last years. So we're all in this together. We all have the power to come together. Please use the space here on the Spiritual Social to recommend things, to suggest things, to give me ideas. We can work towards creating a group here. I mean, we've already created this community, but we can get a little bit closer. We can maybe even take it one step further. I'm looking forward to hear your suggestions and recommendations, because it is indeed very difficult, the times that we're going through, but I don't want you to give in to despair, I don't want you to turn this anger against you and hurt yourself. I want you to take this anger and use it to motivate you to fight for what you hold near and dear. Fight for what you believe in. Don't let people take your confidence and power away. We have this. Much of our ancestors, and if you guys know as witches, well, the ancestry is pretty heavy, right? Much of our ancestors have been through worse, and they managed to reach the other side. They managed to bring more light into this world. We managed collectively to make this world a better place, and we will continue to do so. So don't give up. Don't give in. I am here for you guys. I love you so much, and we will be able to protect and bring back to light the divine feminine. We are already doing it with the work that we're doing here in the spiritual community. And then she will be able to sit next to the divine masculine and be wonderfully harmonious counterparts. But it will take a bit of friction up until we reach that moment. Think about how Pluto in Aquarius is about the heavens. Aquarius is Uranus. It's ruled by Uranus, the Greek god of the sky, of high-minded ideals. There will be a surge of idealism filtering in through the collective. And we will be blessed with inspired new ideas as to how we can make this a brave new world, as to how we can somehow bring back those beautiful foundational values that were inscribed initially in the Declaration of Independence. So it's kind of like we're pressing a reset button on the Declaration of Independence of us as a global village, on us as generations of incredibly diverse, incredibly spectrum kind of individuals. We need to find our voice, we need to find our representation, and in order to do so, we are going to have to change the fabric of the social world. So this is the message, this is the light that I was able to hold for you guys today. I had so many interruptions creating this video, so I hope that you have enjoyed it. Make sure to like it, make sure to share it with other people, make sure to comment down below. This is a safe space. I will protect you guys here. I love the fact that you're part of my crew. Please take your beautiful light out into the world and continue to do this amazing work of raising awareness, of bringing your own personal perspective to the collective, because you are worth it and you are valuable. So keep on fighting the good fight. I'm sending you so much love. Bye.